are back with Green Mountain Mornings on WKVT 100.3 FM, AM 1490, 22 degrees outside, 8:22 on the clock. And today's Green Mountain Morning is sponsored by Brattleboro Subaru. I have in the studio with me Chris Mays. Welcome, Chris Mays.
Thanks.
Chris is from The Reformer, for those who don't know. And shame on you if you don't, because you should be reading all the local journalism you can get your hands on. So, Chris, talk to us about the town of Brattleboro is thinking of purchasing a snowplow.
Yeah, right now the select board is talking with different departments within the town about budgeting.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things on the table is a second sidewalk snowplow, which is about $139,000. And there was a lot of support among residents last week at the select board meeting, and I think the board is really going to try to fund that if they can, because they recognize the importance of safety, street safety.
Well, and that was a problem, if I remember correctly, that the town ran into last year, because they used to have two sidewalk snowplows. One has gone bye-bye because it just outlived its useful life. And last year, there were a couple times when they were down to one snowplow and it broke down and people were just losing their minds about the state of the sidewalks.
Yeah, they think they'll be able to create what's been called a more flexible plan. You know, with having two, they'll be able to hit the routes differently, but also the maintenance is a big issue. If the one snowplow that's supposed to be plowing is out of order, then, you know,
you're kind of sunk.
Yeah.
And we should also mention, I mean, this snowplow is such a great example of how budgets, while we worry about what they'll cost, they are also a statement of priorities.
Right.
And so if this is a service the town wants, they have to ask themselves how they're going to pay for it.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there possible cost related to staffing for this snowplow?
Yeah, there is actually. That's one of the components that they're going to have to discuss, because if they get a second plow, they said they're going to need at least one more part-time staff member.
So what's the next step for this? Is it still in conversation?
Yeah,
Okay.
the select board members have signaled that they support it too. They just have to make sure all the numbers work out for it. But they heard from a few residents who really want to see it.
Wonderful. And great reminder, the fiscal year 19 budget is its most malleable form at this point. So if there's something you care about, citizens out there in Brattleboro, now is the time to speak up to the select board.
Yep.
And you wrote a great piece on some of the changes that are happening on Elliot Street.
Yeah. Yeah, that took a little while to put together. Every time I interviewed someone, they'd say, you got to go talk to this person. And so it was great. I got to meet a few new people. And, Elliot Street is an interesting street for Brattleboro. And Kate at the chamber, Kate O'Connor, the chamber director, she kind of pointed out it's got a lot of it's eclectic,
It is. Well, and it's an interesting street because it often gets a bad rap for crime and theft and things like that. But yet there are a lot of really cool shops and businesses on Elliott Street.
Yeah, I mean, you have the music instrument place, you have the restaurants, and you have tattoo parlor and everything in between.
Did I see that a new store has moved into right on the corner of Elliott and Main?
Yeah, that's Wyndham Apparel Movement.
Oh, okay. So they've moved up from
Arch
lower
Street.
Arch Street. Okay.
Yeah, and so they're excited to be in there, and I think people in the town are happy to have a presence on that street corner because it was kind of missing something.
Yeah, it was looking really empty.
Yeah, and people are sad to see Metropolis go.
Hmm.
The owner is still going to run Arkham
Uh-huh.
back behind in Harmony Place. And the Restless Rooster, I was only able to go there once, but they had to close down. They said their landlord wants to sell the building, and
Uh,
they weren't able to find another location. They wanted their employees to have time to go and find new work.
mhm. So, do is there has Restless Rooster closed its doors or is it closing its doors?
Yeah, they closed their doors earlier this year.
Shows how much attention I was paying.
I think it
That's
was in
sad.
September, yeah,
Okay,
because then Metropolis was the next month,
right.
October.
Any other new businesses on Elliot Street?
No, not right now. No.
But we can check out the ones that are there.
Yeah. Oh, actually,
Wonderful.
there
Oh,
is a new
oh,
restaurant. I
okay.
forgot there is a new Mexican restaurant that took the space
Oh,
of
right.
graffiti sandwich.
Right. Have you had a chance to go there?
Yes, I have.
And?
It's great. I love the music they play there too.
hmm
Yeah.
I think we were at that select board meeting when the new owners, they were seeking their business license or something, weren't they?
I can't remember it right now,
Okay.
but yeah, probably. Yeah.
Poor Chris. Pop quiz, 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I think that was, and I think they were like a brother and sister or something,
Okay.
or the brother was moving up and starting the restaurant.
Yeah.
Well, cool. And what's the name of that restaurant? Oh,
I
more
can't.
pop quiz.
I'm gonna have.
Sorry.
I'm gonna have trouble pronouncing it, so I'd rather not.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, for those who are looking
Yeah.
for Mexican restaurants in Brattleboro, they can, along with Three Stones, they can also go to the one on Elliot Street,
Yep.
which Elliot Street's not that long. So you should be able to find it.
Yep.
Wonderful. Well, we are going to head to a news break. We are back with Green Mountain Mornings on WKVT 100.3 FM, AM 1490, 22 degrees outside, 8:39 on the clock, and I am your host, Olga Peters. Welcome to my guest, Chris Mays from The Reformer. Hello, Chris.
Hi.
And we were going to just talk very quickly about a sentencing hearing you attended yesterday in the case of Tyson Dix.
Yes, he was sentenced to 3 days in jail and 7 days on work crew for a shooting incident in 2014. He shot a car and a victim's left arm. The two men had a past together. They were friends and they were coworkers, and then things happened between them, and it led to that. And so yesterday, the judge had to kind of balance, what was somewhat of an altercation with the deterrent factor. He wants to send a message to the community. It's not okay to shoot at people. And so that was the sentence he came up with. Tyson had pleaded no contest to reckless endangerment
Mm-hmm.
and, yeah, simple assault.
And that the person who was shot, they were just no permanent long-term damage from the injury. It was in the upper arm.
Yeah, he said he still has some pain and he's worried about lead poisoning.
Mm-hmm.
So they're also suggesting that they enter remediation where, Tyson might have to pay for some of those costs for his health care,
Mm-hmm.
medical care.
So it sounds like the judge was trying to send the message of don't bring guns to altercations.
Yeah, yeah. Several times, attorneys and the judge said Tyson took matters into his own hands, and
Mm.
it was out of anger and frustration. There were a couple of disputes beforehand.
Well, interesting. So moving on to a larger topic that has impacted a number of schools in Brattleboro, opioids.
Yeah, it sounds like it's really hitting the region
Hmm.
too. From talking with the superintendent Lyle Holiday about the whole issue at a meeting with the Brattleboro Town School Board, a couple principals talked about some troubling incidents that all happened in 1 week, and you know, they talked about some situations where kids are kind of put in a dangerous situation, and that also forces the schools to kind of cut back on their instructional stuff and their other activities, educational programming and everything that you expect at a school can kind of take a back seat when they're dealing with some of the trauma that goes on in these households. And so you'll remember from annual representative town meeting last year
Mm-hmm.
when they funded a social worker position,
Right.
and she's been busy
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of stuff going on in the schools this year, and then now they're talking about what more can they do.
Right.
They want to address this as best they can, and the school board's going to be talking about that as they go into their budgeting season and get ready for representative town meeting.
And if I remember from the conversation last year or in March from representative town meeting, the the argument for the social worker was that some of these students who are living with, say, opiates in the family, it requires the school to put more resources towards these students because with the trauma that these kids are experiencing, they just need more intensive services.
Yeah, the social worker kind of works outside the classroom, outside the school too.
Mm-hmm.
The social worker will go to homes and will help set up counseling and help with other appointments, and the list goes on. So it's stuff that teachers aren't necessarily trained to do, even if they take some workshops about trauma and dealing with some of these issues. They don't have the same training that a social worker does.
I think I read in your article that incidents that the schools are seeing are things like children. One day, a child brought a syringe filled with heroin
That was
into the
one.
classroom.
Yes.
And can you give other examples?
Um, there were two kids who were being watched by a man who was on the sex offender registry.
Mm-hmm.
And the school had to do a little bit of digging to figure it out,
Hmm.
and they were saying that this was, somewhat of a result of the opioid crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then there was another incident where kids were living in what was described as squalor. They had no food in the house when investigators went,
Hmm.
and that too was blamed on the opioid crisis. Um, and then another incident at another school, another elementary school in town. Um, the the kids were being checked out. I'm not sure. There was an investigation going on, and what was found in a closet was drugs, and a gun. So, yeah, that was another.
Yeah, that's intense.
Yeah.
And what so at the school board meeting, the principals brought these concerns to the board. So what's the next step?
The next step is just getting this stuff out there. The school board wants people to be aware of it,
Mm-hmm.
but they also want to talk about things that they can do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what that looks like yet. I didn't hear anything about another social worker, but yeah, I think anything that could be helpful is going to be looked at right now.
And was any were you given any idea about how many students in the school system this is impacting or
No, but it was large enough where the principal of Academy School was saying this is something we're dealing with on a regular basis
mm,
and at this level. Those were pretty disturbing incidents to hear about, and so he made that point that these are things we're dealing with all the time here.
right? Mm. And it's amazing. When I go to school board meetings or if I watch them on BCTV, it really amazes me how much teachers have to do beyond just teaching the subjects they're trained in.
Yeah, another principal said the whole landscape has changed. From I guess 5 or 10 years ago. These are things that are just they're trained to deal with and um, you know have to deal with all the time.
Mhm. Well, thank you, Chris, and I hope to hear updates as the school board moves forward with figuring out what to do.
Yeah, me too.
And just quickly, we have a few more minutes left. There may potentially be a new brew pub in Wilmington.
Yep. Um, this has been good. This has been talked about for a few years now. I've been following it. Honora Winery and Vineyard in Halifax. They have Jayville Brewery in Jacksonville, and they're looking to expand. They want to take this big building on Route 9 in Wilmington and turn it into a brew pub. I think they're approved to have like 16 seats inside and all. And they just got approved by the state through the Act 250 process. And, one of the things they have to deal with now is getting connected to wastewater.
Mm.
They're going to have water on site, but they have to figure out how to get wastewater, and they could get connected to the town's system. I'm told it's going to be pretty costly, so I think the town's looking to help them with grants to to get that done.
Now, is this the big building on Route 9 near the flea market?
Yeah,
Ah,
it's kind of across from the White House Inn.
right.
Yeah,
Well, that would be great because that building has been empty for years.
yeah, yeah.
And do they have a timeline at all for kind of when this all might happen?
No, not at all. That's kind of the hard part. They're trying to figure out how they can get that done and then do all the other stuff to renovate the building.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you know how far out Wilmington's municipal wastewater system goes? Because I know it covers the downtown, but does it go further out that way?
Um, it does. It goes well. Recently, a resident had a line extended to his property, which abuts that property.
Oh, okay.
So it's possible to get an extension out that way. So yeah,
Aha.
the town is meeting to discuss potential extensions out that way east of the White House Inn.
Oh, okay. For more businesses and
Yeah, so I think this project and maybe another one, or other couple might have prompted that, but there's going to be a meeting next month about
okay.
extending lines.
Well, and it sounds kind of pedantic to talk about wastewater systems and municipal systems, but as I will remind listeners, in conversations with Chris Campany from the Wyndham Regional Commission, he has often pointed out how economic development in some of these smaller villages like Wilmington can really be stymied without municipal wastewater and water supplies.
Yep, we're seeing that right now in Jamaica. They're talking about that. Their new town plan makes mention of a water system, having a village water system in their village because they really can't grow right now. Um, they can't really add to their businesses or anything
Good
like that.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jamaica is again one of those kind of compact little villages that you would think would have a municipal center, wastewater system, but those are expensive.
Yeah, that's really their main focus towards improving economic development right now.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Chris. Anything else you wanted to add before I let you go?
No, I think we covered it all.
Well, fantastic. You can check out more of Chris's stories in The Reformer or online at reformer.com. Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thank you, Nolan, for filming this segment, which will be up later at some point on brattleboro.tv.